You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. Let's start with the spring game from Saturday. LSU wrapped up its third spring under Brian Kelly. Had about a 2-hour workout in Tiger Stadium. Was there and was kind of looking for maybe validation of a lot of what we had seen throughout spring practice. Generally, when you see the spring game, and Brian Kelly even talked about this, they're going to keep it pretty vanilla, and I don't think you're going to see anything that's going to wow you. But you try to maybe get confirmation of certain things that stand out, where guys are running, who maybe has an inside track on a starting job. You love to see the young guys, the early enrollees, get out there and make plays. And the biggest takeaway for anyone who was there or watched has to be that this offense is still light years ahead of the defense. Now, Brian Kelly did say after the spring game, Blake Baker kept it very vanilla. And you'd expect that. I think the word he used exactly was, we're not going to show USC anything in the spring game. Okay, I'm fine with that. But it was also that way in each practice and scrimmage session that we saw. And quite honestly, it should be that way. LSU has a fourth-year quarterback. 4 of your 5 starters on the offensive line returning. You have a boatload of talent at the receiver position. 2 very good running backs, a junior tight end. Your offense is awesome. And I know I've said it this way several times, but you lose your offensive coordinator, who's a Broyles Award finalist. You lose your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, 2 first-round picks at receiver. You would expect that the offense would take a step back this year. And it may take a step back in that it may not be the best offense in all of college football like it was a year ago, but it's still going to be really, really, really good. When the ones were out there, they had no problem moving the ball and no problem scoring. The third play of the game was a touchdown to Xavier Thomas, where Garrett Nussmeier stepped up in the pocket and threw to a wide-open Xavier Thomas in the end zone because LSU busted coverage. Brian Kelly said afterwards they were supposed to be in cover 3. They were playing cover 2. So it was probably on ash and stamps, even though Ryan was the one who was trailing the receiver. But even still, Kyron Lacey got deep on a 59-yard touchdown. Caleb Jackson had a 32-yard touchdown run that he busted straight up the gut, man. And look, I think Caleb Jackson, we all do, is going to be special, and we're all excited to see him this year and what he could do with more reps. But when you're running behind, 2 4-year starters at offensive guard and 2 bookend tackles that are probably going to be first-round picks next year, and it's a defensive line that's not yet set, yeah, I think we would expect that you'd have some success running the football. So if you went to the spring game, if you watched the spring game, you probably noticed that. The LSU first-team offense won the day in a big way. But you know what? I would have been more concerned coming out of Saturday if the LSU offense had struggled. Now, listen, I've gone to spring games before. Like in 2013, Steven Rivers was the best quarterback in the spring game. So, and that's not to knock Steven Rivers, but that ended up being Mettenberger's team. So it doesn't always tell you the story. But this is one of those instances where you went ones-on-ones and your first-team offense absolutely dominated, and that's what we expected to see. And quite honestly, I'm glad we did see that from the offense. I'll tell you something else. One of the takeaways that I had from that last scrimmage we got to see was that when the 2s went out there, the second defense kind of had the upper hand. And we saw that on Saturday. Listen, the first 3 possessions that the first-team offense had were the Thomas, Jackson, and Lacey touchdowns. They didn't get stopped. The 2s went out there, and by the way, it was A.J. Swan who went first in the spring game with the 2s, and they had to settle for a field goal. They were sluggish a little bit, had a check down that went for a long game, but ended up settling for a field goal. At the end of the first half with the 2s, when Ricky Collins went in there, they had a TFL, you had a sack from Kylan Jackson. There was a pass deflected at the line of scrimmage. My point is, the young depth on defense, the young talent seems to be there. Gabe Relaford had himself a heck of a day. Had a couple of sacks, a couple of TFLs, and after the spring game, as a matter of fact, can you play this? This was Brian Kelly after the spring game talking about Gabe, again, early enrollee Gabe Rutherford, who decided not to go to his final semester of high school, graduate early so he could be here for spring, and he made the most of it.
Gabe was going up against a freshman, right? And he's a freshman. I get that. But, now we're going to have to take Gabe, and we're going to have to get Gabe some reps against, Will Campbell. We're going to have to get him up against Emory, because he's earned that now that we've got to be able to see what he looks like against those guys.
You love to see it. So let's go see what it's like. That's why you came here early. So that was some of my takeaways. Before this spring game scrimmage itself started, they ran a controlled red zone period. And P.J. Woodland, another early enrollee, there were two highlights of the red zone period. One was P.J. Woodland, who was on an island against Kyron Lacey, your best receiver. Lacey ran an out to the pylon. Woodland undercut the route and knocked the ball down. I mean, that's a kid, again, who should be in his spring semester of his senior year of high school. But he came here, and he's out there D'ing up the best receiver on your team, getting a pass breakup in the red zone. Now, the other side of it is you had a touchdown run from Josh Williams where he put Jordan Gilbert on skates. So you had some good and some bad from each side there. But Woodland, mentioned Gabe Rutherford. Cohen Eccles ran as your second-team center. Deshaun McBride had some really nice plays in the secondary, had a TFL in that ball game. So, the early enrollees that showed up early, that showed up here for spring ball, seemed to make the most of their opportunity. Here was Brian Kelly after the spring game on those early enrollees.
Bride, I think at the safety position, gives you great length, and he's a tackler, which, you really like for somebody that size. Sometimes, you don't get a tackler, at 6'4" at that position because you expect that they're going to have great range, but he's a really solid tackler, and I could see that today. He's been really impressive, and PJ at the cornerback position has had a really good spring for us, and I think as we continue to get him developed physically, I think he came in at 153 pounds. He's up to like 168. He's put on about 15 pounds. He's got to put on some more weight. As he continues to do that, I think he's a real guy as it relates to competing for playing time.
I thought that was a really good tidbit about P.J. Woodland. And he already spoke about Gabe Rutherford as well. And the last thing, I think we were also looking at the number 2 quarterback situation. I think that remains unsettled. A.J. Swan, they sort of rotated throughout spring. We got to see who took the first reps with the twos, who took the first reps or the second reps with the twos. Swan in the spring game itself got the first series with the twos. I don't know that I think the thing that stood out most from either of those guys was Ricky Collins' ability to tuck and run and improvise. A.J. Swan missed an open receiver. It was Daniels, C.J. Daniels on the left corner of the end zone. I mean, Daniels had a step, and he overthrew him to the left corner of the end zone, threw it out of bounds. I mean, a better placed ball that's a touchdown. So I don't know that either guy did anything to solidify the job. I don't think either guy did anything to lose the job with the backups. But we're going to keep coming back to it. And with Tuesday, the spring transfer portal window opening, Brian Kelly's referenced several times, they're still looking for defensive tackle help in the portal. So we'll get a better sense of what this defense is actually going to look like as it moves along. But, I think that's the one gigantic question we were wondering going into spring. How much better can this defense be? And I think whenever fall camp starts, we're still going to be asking that question because I don't think we got any of those answers. You're still looking for who your starters are going to be at cornerback. You're still looking to add at defensive tackle. I feel better at linebacker, and I think, boy, you have some really good edge rushers. Savion Jones, Deshaun McBride, I thought had a really good spring as well. I mean, there are guys there. Paris Shand is obviously a really good player for you. Looks like he's ready to give you good depth and rotation both in and out. I think you've got a Braden Swinson, of course. You've got good edge rushers. The interior defensive line, your cornerback positions. You figure that out, you could be good enough to complement what should be a great offense. All right, spring wraps up. Third spring under Brian Kelly. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.